Welcome back to the Henry J Project. I have been sorting out some wiring in this while we're also big mess of wire in there as well. And, getting myself caught back up on what circuits I need. I've been digging through boxes. One of the things I noticed, we don't have backup lights that I see anywhere, so I'll talk to him about that. We also don't currently have a dome light, but I am going to run wire and maybe throw a connector down in here somewhere just in case we do want a dome light. I'm still working out what my wiring channel is going to be. It's probably going down the tranny hump because you can see I don't really have a gutter on the seal here, and getting in, oh well, here, let me show you. It's going to be pretty tight because there is a bar that's a swing away here for the cage. Getting it on that side is even less fun. So just kind of going through. I've got to figure out where I'm going to put the dimmer switch. It's probably going to be way over here. I might even put it to the side and then you just kick your foot into it. We did already add lights for the courtesy, so that's good because I'd like to have a courtesy light here and one over there. It's just nice when you open the door and you can see down in the footwell. Obviously I've got to run power and make a harness for the power seats. The feed for that is going to come off this auxiliary harness here, so that's already in the works. I just haven't mapped it out. What I've been doing right now, because I'd like to have this mounted soon so that I can really start running lengths, is trying to sort out what extra things I've got to add and do to this harness. Even though we don't currently have backup lights, I went and dug out a long light green wire because I am going to bundle that in and send it to the back just in case there's something I don't know there or it was an oversight and we were going to add them. The other thing I've got to add, of course, is a orange and white wire to that rear body harness for dome lights, just to get that moving back a little bit. So I'll have to go do some more digging. It's not like I don't have courtesy light wires. Going through, I just spent some time going through some of the harness for the sniper, as well as like that's the license plate flipper, which is in that bottom box. Going through some of the wiper stuff, just making sure I've got every circuit that we need. In this box, he's got his fancy front headlights. That's going to be a different part of the harness. I'm not worried. The dash stuff is in this box. I don't know why it's not in its original box, but it's irrelevant. Yeah, so just kind of going through. I started doing this a couple weeks ago, and then with the wedding, things just, I kind of lost focus. So now going back through, making sure everything is what I want before I start figuring this out. What I most likely will have is some sort of loops. So that harness is probably going to come down and around and loop under the carpet over here up onto the trans tunnel. But I've got to work that out, make sure it's going to be safe. Should be a good location. Your feet are never going to be an issue here. There's, metal there, so that sucked. You can see the pedal box is pretty tight up in here, and there is not a lot of room. So I've got to tie into that harness for the heater over there. I believe those wires are to the switch for the wiper assembly because we're not using vacuum wipers. We're not even going to have any vacuum. This for the brake. And then here is where I had already welded some studs before it went in for paint. We welded studs there for the box. So I'm glad we had thought ahead on that. So we've got an area to mount our fuse box. And that hole there is our pass through to the engine compartment. It's going to just be a grommet, and when we're done we'll see what we want to do about waterproofing once all the wires are through there. We may wind up running some kind of bundled sleeve or something to to keep that up. On the upside, it's way up above, so water shouldn't actually be a big issue. This is not a car that's going on power tour. I don't know that he could afford to keep fuel in this thing. The other thing, of course, is I've still got to figure out where and how I'm passing through the floor. One, to power the fuel pump and get the fuel sender information back. But two, going to have to run out the brake lights and the stuff for the license plate flipper. So I've got to find a spot in the floor that I'm willing to drill a hole, and that we will probably do one of those grommets that has the boot on it, you know, so you can zip tie that up and keep moisture out, because that is under the car and you want to be careful there. But I will find a location for that. Just dawned on me I hadn't been shooting video, because I usually don't while I'm wiring. It's hard to do all of that and be conscious of shooting video and not playing music and getting copyright strikes. You can see it's just a mess over here, but this is actually starting to come together. You know, most of the rear body harness is now at least routed. You can see it sitting up over the hump over there, plus some of his auxiliary harness is coming up over here. So that's getting there. It's always difficult to keep this in your head, but here we've got, you know, most of the rear body harness. Now this is a very short car, so most of that wire isn't gonna be used, but I don't cut it until I have to. I've still got to work out our turn signal switch assembly, and I got a few more wires I've got to go through and decide how we're mounting them. There's a good chance that I'm going to shorten this. This wire is very long for the headlight switch. Yeah, but until I have this mounted, I don't want to shorten anything unless I already know exactly where it's going. But right now, all I'm doing is deciding what bundles are going down, what bundles are going up, and then, of course, the engine harness is actually going to go to the side, because that's why we drilled the hole where we did. So, and unlike a lot of production vehicles, we're not going to have a bulkhead disconnect for engine and light harness going to the front. We just don't have the room for it, and honestly, there really isn't a need for it. So that is what we're doing. So there's a little update. I will turn her back on in a little bit, see if I've made any progress or any more notes. Just reading through things and making sure I'm not forgetting anything. And it slowly progresses. So we're starting to actually finalize some locations. I wound up moving the horn relay, you know, unpinning it and moving it so that it's going to be up under the dash, hidden instead of down below like it was. I've been pulling the accessory harness apart because most of those aren't going to go that direction. This is the fuel pump fuse here. Now, one thing to note is, where's the harness? It's around here somewhere. The aftermarket fuel injection stuff, they always come with their own harnesses. And let's see, here's the expansion harnesses for the Sniper. Oh, here's the actual harness where I left it. And this has a fuel pump relay here and a fuel pump trigger wire. So I'm most likely in this case going to use it. Normally I just use these as a trigger and run something in the fuse box, but we're going to be so tight in this location that I think this actually won't be a bad call. So once I get this harness torn apart and look at it and look at routing, then I'll make that final decision. Just trying to make things easy to work on in the future, you know. Don't make things difficult. I've gone and pulled some more courtesy lighting to run back. So if you look, now that's for the dimmer. Here we go. So here's my rear body harness starting to come together. So here's most of the wiring for the rear body harness, but I'm also running a set of courtesy wires back. They're not going to go all the way. They're probably going to get right in the ballpark of the shifter linkage, or maybe even behind the seats, and then get split off, connectorized to go to a potential future dome light and perhaps some lighting in the rear cargo area, so that, you know, when you open the door you can actually see everywhere. So that's got to be worked with, but the important part is, as long as I got wires there, I can do something with that. Remember, on a custom job like this where the car's only half built, you're designing it as you go, so try not to paint yourself in a corner. The other thing, obviously, I've got this pretty much done here for the GM style turn signal switch. So I've got that loomed and out of the way. This is loomed and out of the way. And then remember, this mounts in that fender well up here in that direction, with the car being forward like this. So we're getting there. I'm hoping to eventually get everything going through the firewall loom together, but not quite yet. And get one of the things I want is this to lay down naturally onto these 2 points without wires being pushed down, you know. So we just keep moving things and relaxing them. You'll note, you know, when I popped the pins and moved the connector for the horn relay, see, I've actually got it running directly under some of the heavy wire loops. You know, an area that would otherwise just be wasted space is now a channel for that wiring to run. So I just keep moving things. It's not that hard, you know, 56 series connectors. You know, take your pin popper and you pop them on the back. Let's see if I've got something sitting out. Oh, I bet I do. I bet if we come over here, we got, yeah, so when you look on the back of these, you can see there's a little tab right here, and that's the lock tab. So there'll be in your cavity, if it's installed correctly, there'll be a spot for a tool to slide in, and it slides in and pushes that tab down, releasing the connector. So when the connector goes into the housing, I don't know if I can get the lighting good here, but see this channel up here, that's where the tab would go, so it would go this way, and then you can pop this in, slide the wire out, bend the tab back up, pop it into another cavity. No big deal. It's one of the things that's really, really nice. Most pins are back shell, or, you know, back of the shell pins, but then you get metro packs and things where the wire actually goes through, gets crimped on, it gets pulled in, and those are a little, they're not really meant for changing things. You know, that's what an OEM will do with a harness that's never going to change, and you're building 10,000 of them. But these connectors like this are great for this. I think it's part of why I really like the weather pack connectors as well. Is, see, this little round tool here is the pin popper for these, and you can see when you look at, here's some unterminated connectors, so that slides down, and there's these little ears, which I think you can see here and here. Those little ears are what keep it in the shell. So when you look in, you know, you look in here, see from the back it looks like it's sealed, but it really isn't. If you slide your tool on and do it one-handed even, and see, now it comes right out. So to pop it back in, you would just make sure you spread these ears back out a little bit, move it to the terminal you wanted it on, and you can tell, you can hear it click and you can feel it. Always pull back on them. But yeah, so always try to use things that aren't going to paint us in a corner in the future. Now this obviously got closed, but you can see they're very handy connectors. And then, well, sometimes life hands you something where you do need spades and rings. I mean, it's just reality. So anyway, I'm going to get back to this. I'm about to go start seeing just how much power my seats are going to need. I'm pretty sure this is going to do it. If I recall, this is a 30 amp circuit. So let's see. Power windows is a 30. Yeah, power seats is a 30 amp circuit. So if we need more than 30 amps to run those seats, we're going to have to change something, because that's just crazy. So anyway, I'm going to pull that out and try to relearn some of that and just keep moving along. It's you know, a good day to just remember and learn and plan things out. Like I said, getting this to lay flat and deciding how I want to use it, that's a big part of my day. Well, I'm still playing with these seats. I can't seem to get the heated seats to work correctly. I've got to add a 10 amp breaker to these blue and white wires, and that powers the actual switches, which work momentarily and then stop. So when you come here on the last page, okay, so here is the actual circuit for the seat cushions, and then these wires here coming right here are this harness for the passenger side, and you can see it breaks out here. And then of course for the driver's side, there it's already bundled in this harness. So also the module of course is on the driver's side, and the cover just pops right off. So I was just looking for any stains or any marks or anything, but everything seems fine. So when I apply power, and then you got to put her in bypass because she doesn't sense a battery. So you can watch, you know, got all of these working. I did have one connector I had to repair, and then one time I can get it to work, and that's it. And eventually it just turns off. Same with, well, sometimes this one, sometimes not. Nope, too late. I already got one working. So the thing I'm worried about is, you can see we have a connection to the body control module that we're obviously not going to have because we don't have a body control module, and I'm really worried about that. So hopefully this, yeah, you can see it's already turned itself off. I'm hoping that that doesn't mean another computer has to give permission for things to turn on. I'm just working with the information I was given. All the motors seem to work. They do seem to stop at their limits, so I'm definitely getting all the feedback circuitry off of those. I've also now know what I've got to do for power, although it's crazy that they're calling this a 20 amp circuit. Look how tiny this wire is. But that's one of the problems with modern cars. The wires are literally the size they need to be, no extra. Be dumbfounded how much cost you can add in extra copper in modern cars. So I'm still tracking it down, still trying to see if any of these wires matter. You can see I've got a giant nest here, plus that harness and that stuff over there was in the same box. I haven't figured out where these even go. I have a feeling these go to like power mirrors or something, because this module also controls power mirrors. And it does control the memory for the seat position, which I know works. And I'm not going to push it when it's sitting on the lift like this, because boy, that thing goes crazy. So at this point, I think I got to do more reading. Okay, just further troubleshooting, and I'm finding the tan green wire which comes off the switches, and I checked the other one already, so now I'm on that one. So in their standard state, you can see we've got a dropping resistor here. So you got 12 volts here. There's some divider down in here that puts us across this resistor. We got 1.3 volts. If I go to low, you'll see I get 10.6, and if I go to high, I get 5 volts. That's a pretty common way of measuring multiple inputs on one wire. So by the computer looking at a couple different levels, two things have just happened. One, I know that the other end of the mux is connected. So wherever that is on this PWB, it's connected to it. I can tell because we have a ground reference. So we can develop a voltage, and we have our divider. So we've got that. Both of these are actually sending their signals. So I know that this is good. I know that's this set of blue wires here. Okay, so we are telling the module to change the seats. Now the next thing I want to do, because I did occasionally see the low light turn on both of them. So instead of chasing that, the next thing I think I want to chase is the actual power out to the seats. So if I come over here on the last page of these included diagrams from 2002, that is how long this project has been going. Okay, so when I look here, okay, so if we use the passenger side, which works good because then I can use this breakaway. Okay, I will go ahead and see if any of these change. Maybe I just don't have a good ground and it's not getting a good temperature sensor feedback. I don't know. I got to take a look. So if I recover that, I go to this connector, which I believe is this one here. Okay, we already know that we've got our we've got a red and tan, a tan and dark blue, and a black and light green. The black and light green should be 5 volts. I don't have my goggles on, but I can see black and light green is this cavity back here, which apparently I should have my glasses on, which most definitely does not have 5 volts on it. So I've got to figure out why that is. Yeah, I definitely don't have 5 volts on that. So that's not being turned on, because without that we can't even get the temperature sensor feedback. So it won't even turn this on if it's not seeing a temp sensor. So this is the next thing I'm going to look into, see if I can figure out where all that is located. Okay, just working my way down. I found the connectors in here. So right now I'm on the brown wire that passes between the two, and I will touch B at some point. I made that sound easier to get into than it is. There we go. So I know that wire is good. Now if I come over, and I'm just back probing, ground. Okay, so you can see that's just to ground. Okay, so what we just did is verify our G300 point all the way through the seat back. You know, it's a resistive heater, so we actually are going through there. So if I take the brown wire again, which should be this one, verify that I'm on the pin. See, I'm on the pin. So now if I go back to ohms and go to ground, you can see, and that's what I would expect from a resistive heater, very low. Okay, now the same one, if I go from A to B, that's the seat cushion. So on here, that is, and don't push down in real hard, but from here to here, and I got 1.8 ohms. I'm not gonna be able to show you that, but trust me, I got that. So all that seems to be working. Also, when I go across the temp sensor, you know, which is just a resistor that changes with temperature. So if I go from here to here, I'm going to be somewhere in the 8K range. Yep, 8.4K. And then if that heated up, that's going to go one way or the other. So it's not that this is all bad. So the next thing I'm going to do is work from this connector, which is right here, all the way back to this connector. And then from this connector to this connector. And from here, figure out where on earth it's all coming from up here. Hopefully nothing is blown in here, but I'm not getting that 5 volt reference that it says I should be getting. And I have a feeling that that is going to be very important for me. Well, unfortunately, we either have something wrong in this module, or we do have to have communication with a BCM. And it doesn't matter what switch, whatever one, I just applied power. I waited too long. Oh no, I didn't turn power back on, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to apply power. I'm looking at the output to the seat on this side. So if I pick high, it'll select high. And you see it's sending voltage. Unfortunately, after about 30 or 40 seconds, it shuts off. Also, at this point, you can't turn that off, and you can't select the other seat. Had we picked this one first, that would be the one that's on. And then after a little bit, it times out. So I don't know if there is another signal I need to be giving this box to tell it maybe something about retained accessory power or ignition switch power. So I will keep looking because obviously these will continue working when the car is off because they're hooked up to battery power. But perhaps Chrysler was like, yeah, let's not run heated seats in a car that isn't turned on. So I gotta keep looking. And the bad news is, after a little digging, the body control module for these vehicles is where the actual logic to run the heated seats are. So let me get to that page. Right here, this connection on the PCI bus to the BCM, that's absolutely required, and so is a BCM, which of course we don't have. So we're not going to have heated seats the way we are now. Maybe we can try to find a way to adapt one of the aftermarket controllers. I'm not sure. I think we're going to have to do some research. But for right now, well, I've got a few hours into it, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of this. It's just not all here. So we're probably not having heated seats right out the gate. So I'm not going to completely pull this whole harness out. I got to figure out what wire that body control module wire is and make sure we keep that so that in the future we can try to find a way to run that. Yeah, that's kind of sad. We were really hoping that those would work out. But if nothing else, everything else on the seats does seem to work. So we'll keep moving ahead, and it looks like that's where we're gonna leave it for today. Got other chores to do yet. We got a pretty good start. I've already spoken with Harlan. We got to think about what we want to do about the fact that this PIC or microcontroller, whatever's here, doesn't actually do the heated seat stuff. So we got to figure that out. We got to figure out how to pretend to be a body control module. Not sure if that's a reasonable task to set ourselves or not. So at this point, ShopDog says it's been a long day. We got to take out the garbage. We got chores up at the house, and Mama's been canning all day, so it's been hot and smelly. So ShopDog's had enough. We're gonna go in a little bit and just pick up. So thanks for watching. ShopRex says, always watch where you're going.